been working with builders of architecture for about 7 or 8 years. And it's been good fun, and we've learnt a lot as we've sort of become baby builders and architects to more grown-up builders and architects. My name's Georgie Quinn and I am an architect. I like to connect with the site and the client as a sort of primary starting point. And then we generally use a lot of natural materials. So we use brick and timber, stone, lots of materials that will age and patina over the time of their life with our clients. Usually the sites we try and engage with the garden, the landscape, what's going on with neighbours or parks or streetscapes and things, and see how our clients want to live and see if we can tie it all together into a nice forever home. A lot of the people that I've worked with in the past, things that I've seen travelling, a lot of architects from overseas, and I think a big moment for me is I did an educational course with Glenmurcutt for a couple of weeks in Sydney, and I think that was quite informative in terms of engaging with the environment and the landscape. I think that was a bit of a pivot point for me, and I think that's something that I try and do regularly now with all of my projects. We've done quite a lot together now. It started with quite a small apartment in Toorak, and it's grown since then. It would be edging towards sort of, I don't know, a dozen, I would say, of varying scales, and we've also done holiday houses as well as city apartments and big houses in Melbourne, and we're working on a brand new house in Melbourne now, which we're really excited about and looking forward to progressing. Builders and Architecture and I, we started working together through a tender process, which is something that I used to do almost all the time, invariably with projects. But we worked so well together, and we noticed different quirks, I guess, with the process that we decided we were quite committed to resolve together. And the more often we worked together, the more challenges we sort of identified together, and we kind of had a really nice relationship where we felt confident to try and work through various issues as a team. And that's just grown and grown, and we've developed quite a few common processes. We have gone through different life stages together over the last few years, seen babies born and various different life challenges, and we've all supported each other through. So there's a bit of a family style relationship now, and I think we just work really well together. We just try and help each other out. They've informed me a bit for my architecture, how I design, and also how I produce my documents so I can communicate effectively to their team. And then I've also helped them in terms of communicating with clients and the way we organise some of the sort of management structures and things with the client and on site with the client. I think, we just offer a lot to one another, and I think we've enjoyed each other's opinions and company and support, and it's been a really nice process. I think the thing that is unique to Builders of Architecture is that they are very committed to the architectural intent and the process, and also the relationship with the client that is already established with the architect. They like to join in on that relationship and support the client in the way that I've done since I met them in the inception of the project. So I think that's something that doesn't always come across with builders, that they're quite committed to the experience that the client has, and also that the architect has with the client. And they're quite also committed to the team environment, which is pretty unique. We're not all in our camps working on our own sort of aspect of the project. We're all working as a team together, and it's a nice environment, and it's a nice way to work. We all enjoy our jobs as a result, I think. In terms of trying to realise projects, it's something that I was frustrated by when I was working for some other practices when I was younger. We've been really fortunate in terms of the deliverability, I guess, or I'm trying to think of a better word, but the hit rate that we have is that we pretty much build every single project that we are presented with. I've got a bit of a strong belief that all of the architectural design and documentation is only there really to produce a physical building. It's not there as an item of beauty on its own. And so working with Builders of Architecture, we've developed that process even more so that our communication strategy is getting better and better. It's another thing that I think I also learnt when I have been to lectures with the same architect I mentioned earlier, Glenmurcutt. He's got a similar belief that it's not the ego of the architect, but it's actually the generation of a piece of building or architecture that sits within a broader landscape or community environment, that's the important aspect of our job. It's not the production of design and drawings. We have a real commitment to listening to the client and really spending all of our time trying to get the result that they have asked us to achieve for them. Certainly we put our own input in and we've got our own opinions about what that best result is, but at every stage we bring it back to the client and we check in with the client and we review their initial sort of wish list or brief and make sure that we're hitting those targets, and anything that's changed along the way that they're comfortable with the fact that something's changed. I think we're good listeners, and we really care for the outcome that we're giving our clients financially, and also in terms of the physical building and the architecture and the life that we're sort of creating for their families. The collaboration that I have with builders of architecture and also my clients, I think it just makes for a happy life. I haven't got a more complicated explanation. We all have a huge passion for what we're doing. I also love the building process and how it's done. I love learning from the tradesmen and various contractors that Builders of Architecture employ, as well as all the guys at Builders of Architecture I've known. Many of them have been here for the whole time that I have worked with Builders of Architecture. And then I love learning about my clients and what they, how they like to live, what they want out of their house, how their family operates. The collaboration that we all have together just makes for a really interesting, happy process. We're not sort of adverse to one another. We're not trying to get one up on one another. We're just trying to get a really great result and work well. And there's obviously challenges that come along the way, but the way we all communicate always and quickly and effectively and get on top of it, and we explain to our clients that challenges are going to come up, but we just work through it together. And I think that process is just makes for a really enjoyable job and a happy life. Often the clients are referrals from previous clients, so often they come to me first, but then I introduce them to Builders of Architecture at that same moment. And so the clients get a sense of the team that's going to be taking care of them from the start to the finish. So we don't have that moment which you see a lot on sort of grand designs or whatever, that there's a crunch point where you bring in the builder and we say, what's going to change? What's the builder going to think of what we've done over the past however long designing? So we meet the team, we all talk about what the objectives are, what we're trying to get out of the process. And I don't know, it's kind of nice. I think they get introduced to the broader Builders of Architecture family. So we often bring the clients to one of our active sites. They can meet some of the guys. I often talk about our projects in terms of the nest. So who's going to be taking care of their nest while they're not there? Because it's a very special part of a family's life. I think it's your sort of sanctuary. I think it's nice to show and to instill that the confidence that we are very mindful of the privilege that we've been given and that we take it very seriously. And these are the people who are going to be looking after you through that journey, because it's a long journey and we all get to know each other very well over the course of it. So I think we've been lucky with one of the great results of our process is that most of the clients that come to us wanting a home, we end up building a home for them. I think we'd almost be close to 100% in terms of the number of physical buildings that we produce as a result of an inquiry that we get with a client early on. I've heard that it can be unusual to have that higher rate where we turn the project around and end up with a new home for our clients. We've been very fortunate, and I think it is hopefully a testament to the process that we have created together, that we kind of stick with what the client wants and educate one another along the way, and so we end up always getting to the finish line, which is really nice and very satisfying. One issue that we have heard happens a lot in our industry is that there's potentially a lack of attention to the budget during the process of establishing the brief. It's very exciting when clients come to us with a brief of all the wonderful things they want to be built and included into their house, but often they always come with a cost attached, and so that's something that we've learned over the years, is to pay huge attention to that aspect, that we have to marry the brief and the budget at all times, and we work through that together with the client. And one of the great joys of this collaboration that we have with Builders of Architecture is we can do that from day one. So we try and knit together the brief and the budget from the minute we get started, and we continually check in and work on that combination and trying to get it right so that we end up with a wonderful building at the end, but also a building that everyone can afford. With our project in Malvern East, we had some challenging constraints on the site, which was quite a large building was built on the adjoining property, which was on our northern aspect, which is obviously a very important one in terms of getting natural light into the building. So we've arranged our house around a courtyard space so that we can basically generate a lush landscape environment while even though some of the options have been taken away from us due to a neighbouring building. The thing I love about this house is that it's got a focus on the garden and the landscape and living outside and light and being able to watch the sun move across the site during the course of the day. There's a different vibe for morning light and then afternoon light, and where you want to be in the house and on the site at varying parts of the day. Where do you want to eat your dinner? What sort of light condition do you want? How do you want to engage with your garden? So, I'm very excited about seeing it all finished. We're getting close.
Everything has been going to plan. We've had a really good experience. It's been everything we hoped for, actually, and I think pretty much it's been remarkably stress-free considering the size of the project you're taking on. It's been really, really good.
Yeah, and where there have been issues, as with any large project, there's such good communication between the architect and the builders and us that everything just gets resolved fairly smoothly with some talking and it hasn't been a hassle. When friends ask us how's the renovation going, we go, it's great. And they say, where are you up to? And I'm like, oh, well, I can show you some pics, and we just have to look at this portal. And we can show them the photos and the progress, and it's wonderful for us because we know where we're at, and so can our friends. I think that's so marvellous. I wish we had that when we renovated. It would have been so much easier to just have a sense of reassurance that they can see the progress. So the portal's been fantastic, and as well as the photos, there's all the invoicing and the scheduling and the milestones, so it makes it really easy.
Obviously there's a sense of nervousness when you embark on these kind of projects because they come with a reputation, they're big and they're complex, and they're quite emotional because you're building your home. But for us, that feeling we had of working with Georgie and Adam and Craig and the boys has just continued, just as it was at that stage. Yeah. It's been really, really good. We've got a huge amount of confidence in the team we've got around us. They're great guys to work with. And we've had, as Athena said, great clarity all along the way. Any issues that have come up have been sorted out really smoothly. They come with solutions, and often an array of solutions we can choose from. We just can't speak highly of the quality of the work and the way they work with us. It's absolutely fine. Everything is on track. Yes. I think there are obviously variations as you come along. Stuff comes up. In some cases, we've asked for extra things as well, but even so, our variations are remarkably low, like orders of magnitude lower than similar projects who've gone through this.
And that's really, probably really the biggest stress factor for most people when they're renovating. And so it's nice to have that reduced significantly. We had spoken to a number of architects and a number of builders, and the builders of architects and our architect had talked to us through this process, and we thought this is really unique and differentiated. We haven't heard anyone propose this to us before. It sounds really good, and then it was just really, we just needed to take the leap of faith and go with it.
They introduced us to previous clients, and when you talk to people who've already been through this experience, which they continue to evolve on every project they go through, and those people are really happy, then you get a good sense. So I think the decision to, as Athena said, almost take a little bit of a gamble really on this approach, which is not something other people really do, has paid off in spades, and we couldn't really recommend it highly enough. There's two things to it. One is both Georgie and the builders are used to working together, so they understand how each other works, and that relationship, and I think the strength of that relationship is a key point. And the other is that they continually look to see how they can make the process more efficient, and that just pays off for people like us. So yeah, it's been fabulous. I'd recommend it.
And Craig and Adam did present us with very detailed costings so that we could see where the allocation of the budget was going, and I don't know that you get that with that level of detail with other builders, but they were fairly straightforward with those allocations, and they've sort of run to those allocations ever since.
Interestingly, we were chatting about this the other night. We were saying, is there anything we look back and do differently? And we actually couldn't think of anything. We're like, no, it's working really, really well. We think we're not really sure what else we could have done that would have improved it.
If everyone's collaborating and talking and everyone knows their roles, it just frees up your headspace to focus on things like furnishings and handles and yeah, you can get on with the fun bits and stop stressing about money and construction and things like that, because you know that it's taken care of.
For me, it's we could make decisions quickly. And that also helps with the speed of your project as you go through. So we've got a really clear idea of where we are. When a question comes up, we're presented with the options and we can just say, well, that one. And that speed of decision making probably helps everyone. So I think that's where we as clients work well with them. But the reason we're able to work well with them is because of the way that Georgie and the builders work.
Matt and I had originally discussed a particular style of kitchen, but our architect and the builders had said, look, we've got something else in mind. And so when it came to the joinery meeting, they asked us to head down to the factory where they could show us in detail what they were thinking of. And so we headed down to the factory, and there was a mock-up there. And at first we were tentative, like, oh, that's not really what we were thinking of. But through the discussions, the joiner was there, the builder was there, architect was there. We sort of came to a good place, and now we're really happy with what we're going to get.
The difference is if we hadn't gone down to the Builders of Architecture factory and had a chat with Craig and Adam, Tom and Mick and Dave the joiner, if they hadn't built that mock-up, the first time we would have seen it was when it was actually in our house, and we would have had a surprise. And the problem with surprises when it's in your house is not much you can do about it. But the fact that they actually built a full prototype, which would have taken a fair amount of work to get that doing, enabled us to have a really sort of nuanced and sensible discussion around why they made the decisions, and we could sort of get our heads around, well, we had something in our mind, this is slightly different. Actually, now we've talked about it, we think this is going to work really, really well. So it's a brilliant example, I think, of where they've thought about how they can make a process work better and create a better experience for the client. Blown away by that. It was really, really good.
I've had stories from my other friends who have had things installed and it's not right, so they're unhappy, so they're immediately on the defensive, and so they think, one, I've got to broach this with the builder, and two, who's going to pay for if it needs to be fixed or redone because I'm not happy with it. So again, we haven't had any of those issues.
We went to see, I rang, I think Adam, because someone I knew had used Adam and Craig to do their renovation, and so they came with a recommendation. And I wasn't sure at the time whether we should go with an architect or a draftsperson. And so I rang Adam and just said, hey, help me out here. We're really early in this process. I'm not sure which way I should go. And Adam very clearly outlined the reasons why an architect is an extremely good idea if you're doing any kind of renovation and you don't have everything mapped out in your head. And even if you do, it's a bit risky. And so we started from there. And then we rang Georgie. The meeting with Georgie just, I think, underlined for us that she was a little bit different to the architects we'd spoken to before, in that she really focused on what we wanted from the house rather than her vision as an architect for this place. And I think that's the difference. From the start, we got a feeling they're trying to build our home, not the project they want to build. So that was fabulous. We've talked all about, I think, Adam and Craig and Georgie, but there are three really important people who've made this project a success. So Tom, as our sort of project manager, if you like, I think that's the title, has just been so on the ball, always been able to contact us, understands in minute detail what's going on, but also has a view of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So he's been fabulous just to talk to. Mick has just been brilliant at running the show and keeping everyone on track.
All the schedules and...
And Zach's just been fabulous at working at the site. We've had him sort of up ladders and holding lights to where we think we'd want to go.
Yeah.
He's the one who takes all the pictures. So between the three of them, it's, once you go past your agreement with Adam and Craig and your work with Georgie, it's these three guys who have such a huge impact on the project, and they've been fantastic.
And they've been so happy to go into detail about every aspect of the build. Like when we're getting the doors in, they don't just say, here are the doors. They'll say, well, this is the mechanism that we're choosing, and this will work to your advantage because of X, Y, and Z over another type. Or here are the blinds we're getting. Here is the array of different fabrics you can look at. We're recommending this one, but you could also go with these others. Here they are for your selection.
So we've had a fabulous team. Builders of Architecture and Georgie, just absolutely brilliant.
I'd like to think that when I look back that all the inconvenience, because because it is a long project, is worthwhile. And I feel now that we will be really happy when we move in, and that we can live really smoothly and happily, and the everyday things that we do just sort of go smoothly, really.
Yeah, I think I'd probably look back and just remember that we actually went through a really good process. It could have turned out any number of ways, and we made the right decision. And if we're going to do this in the future, make the same decision.
Hopefully it will be the fulcrum of our lifestyle.
Yeah, we'll have the doors open, looking out on this beautiful courtyard. Again, we wanted this to be a place where we'd have friends around a lot and entertain, and we're just really looking forward now to the last stretch and getting here and living in what together we've all designed and built.